Welcome to On Cloud, the podcast for cloud professionals, where we break down the state of cloud computing today and how you can unleash the power of cloud for your enterprise. Now, here's your host, David Linthicum.
Welcome back to the On Cloud podcast. Today in the show, I'm joined by Kashif Rahmatullah. He's the principal at Deloitte with me, and he's going to recap Google Next. How you doing, Kashif?
Doing great, David. Good to be here with you.
Well, pretend you're a hard-hitting tech journalist, and you're going to tell me about what's going on at the event. And even we're going to have discussion, get some opinions, some of the stuff we haven't discussed prior. It's going to be candid and on the go. I did see the keynotes as well, did so remotely, haven't been walking around the show floor. I'm sure you got a different perspective in doing that. So what were some of the key items that were announced at the event that really kind of you view as setting Google apart in their role in the market right now?
Yeah, David, I think the theme of the event, as Google has put it, is the new way to cloud. And it was quite evident right off the bat with the keynote that Thomas Kurian and Sundar Pichai participated in. And it's almost, in my mind, a pivotal moment, right? I mean, we've been all hearing about the hype, if you will, around generative AI. But I think what we saw in action, because there was quite a few demos during the keynote, as you probably noticed, was putting all of that generative AI in action, right? Google's been working on and sort of almost invented the transformers. And now, you see all of that in action through the power, that they're delivering through Vertex AI and the announcement of Duet AI for both workspace and soon to be coming in a GA around cloud. So the application of those two solutions, the fact that Vertex AI will now incorporate not only Google's own LLMs, but also the third-party large language models, were some key announcements. I think there was a lot of excitement post that keynote. As I kind of noticed the cloud was almost secondary, and Gen AI powered by cloud was the key theme of the conference so far. The big announcement with NVIDIA around the Google partnership, leveraging NVIDIA's GPUs and the H100, and how that's going to power some of that generative AI capabilities for Google, their engineers working directly side by side with Google engineers, was, I think, also a pretty significant moment as part of this conference. And lastly, I would say the responsible AI theme, right? The fact that Sundar mentioned that in his portion of the keynote, and then it was demonstrated through some actual implementation of digital watermarking on images that are generated through generative AI that you cannot see and it doesn't distort the quality of the image. It was another, I think, pretty important moment in the actual application of responsible and reliable, trustworthy AI. So those were some of the key highlights that I noticed, David.
No, I think you're spot on. I think I also noticed the fact that cloud wasn't really not mentioned as much in the keynotes, even though it's a cloud conference. But I think we're kind of entering the age where what runs on the cloud is kind of more important than the concept of cloud. We know we got storage right and compute right, databases, things like that. We've been at that for about 15 years, and it seems to be working. So that becomes foundational for these incredibly innovative technologies that sit on top of that technology. I think you kind of hit the nail on the head where the cloud is becoming a core platform for AI, and that's really going to be the focus of a lot of the cloud conferences moving forward. I've been to a couple in person, over the last months. Really, everybody is pivoting not necessarily away from cloud, but using cloud as foundational technology. So on the NVIDIA stuff, what would be a good application for that? What would be a good use case for a typical enterprise to leverage that technology?
Yeah, I think as enterprises go through this decisioning process of, do we create our own large language models? Do we leverage third-party, first-party, large language models? I think it's a way of powering that decision, right? Once you've made that decision, NVIDIA's GPUs really provide the computing power that you require. Google is of the opinion that you should really first take a serious look at the third party, including their own LLMs, as well as hundreds of large language models. The other question is, do we actually use a large language model? Do you start with a smaller version? Like, Google has now generally available MedPalm, which is, a medical version of PaLM large language model. Similarly, they have a SecPalm, which is focused and specifically around security and security threats. They are talking about creating a lot of these specific industries, sector specific large language models that would allow companies to take advantage instead of having large models that require a lot of compute power and a lot of storage and a lot of time to tune. Start small, leverage your own corpus of data to tune that. And that's been a key differentiator for Google because they don't require those models to feed data back outside of the four walls of an organization. So from a reliability, from a security, privacy, and trustworthiness perspective, the model, once it's used, it's tuned, it stays within the four walls of an organization. And in some cases, that's where the power of GPUs and TPUs will come into play. The other thing is, just engineering partnership between NVIDIA and Google, where their engineers are working side by side to tune the models to run effectively in an optimized fashion is the other, benefit that customers will actually gain from this partnership, right? Because these models will be tuned to run in an effective way. There's a lot of compute power required. And so how do you optimize these models so that your compute, bills are not outrageous? And so I think there's a lot of goodness that will come out of this collaboration and alignment between Google and NVIDIA.
Yeah, I think the important aspect of that is the ability to componentize these LLMs and use them in certain circumstances. I do see, and you already mentioned a few already, verticalized LLMs, where you get some general understanding in terms of verticalized knowledge bases, say around manufacturing and healthcare, but also the ability to build your own LLM and your knowledge base within your four walls that are going to be proprietary to you. And if you think about it, this tiered AI is kind of where everything is going. So it's not going to be leveraging a single LLM. It's going to be leveraging multiple LLMs, some that are owned and provide general purpose information that's needed for a particular industry, and those that are associated with just a business. And I think that's kind of the way that enterprises want to consume generative AI. What do you think?
No, I think you're spot on. I think just like, several years ago when people started considering cloud and there was a lot of concern around data privacy and data sharing, and do I really put my IP and differentiated solutions and applications on somebody else's infrastructure? We're somewhat in that same point around generative AI. At this point, there's a lot of conversation about, do I create my own large language model because I have so much data that's residing within the four walls of my organization that I own, that I maintain, that I control? And I think that's really where I feel like Google has taken a very different path. Their focus around creating an enterprise-ready solution that allows enterprises to be comfortable with touching and leveraging this technology, because again, they have offered, you to take a model, a version of a model, tune it within your own tenants, if you will, of Google Cloud, leveraging your corpus of data, and none of that data ever leaves your, sort of environment and your tenants within Google Cloud. I think that enterprise specific view to address the concerns around privacy, security, control on data has been a bit, in my mind, differentiator for Google versus some of the other competitor products. So I'm fully aligned with what you just said.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about Duet and integrated with Workspace. I saw some really cool demos of that during the keynotes. What should listeners take away from that?
Yeah, I think Duet from a workspace standpoint, just in terms of workforce productivity, will certainly be a significant uplift for Google and Workspace both. But I think what you also saw was how it's going to be now also integrated with cloud and what you can do with it around code quality, code generation, just the speed with which you can generate code. And again, going back to sort of, the natural language models, right? Or the natural language processing, if you will, right? So leveraging, just plain old English to generate pieces of code that can get you accelerated by days, if not, weeks, is going to be super powerful. You're also, in my mind, shifting the role, if you will, of a developer and or an architect and an engineer, right? And really opening that up to people that may not be as deeply technical, right? And their ability to spin up applications and the use of technology. And so I think, again, it's this is stuff that we've been, in the space of AI and in the space of code generation and code quality reviews and stuff like that, we've been talking about, but now it's in action, and it's really awesome to see that. I also want to call out what we saw around AlloyDB, which was another announcement that Google made, and just the opportunity there to modernize and really migrate your data and database applications, over to Google Cloud, and the speed with which you'll be able to do that, and how between Duet and Alloy you're able to leverage the tools to accelerate that process significantly.
Yeah, I was kind of taken back by the fact that we can finally develop applications at the speed of need. We can think it and get to an application state in a very short period of time, and get to a state where we're not just building something as a prototype that we throw away, but something that's workable that we're able to get into production in a record amount of time to start adding value to the business. And I think that's been missing from a lot of the way in which we do development and deployment. Even with the advent of DevOps and agile technology, it still takes a while to build these systems. And now, leveraging AI as a true force multiplier, we're able to get them out as quickly as we can. So where can people find out more about you on the web?
I mean, certainly I am on LinkedIn at Kashyap DC as well, and on Twitter. And our relationship with Google has been a multi-year journey with us. We were, by the way, announced as Partner of the Year as well, and Deloitte was this year. So Deloitte.com.
Yeah, absolutely. Check it out. Good alliance, good relationship, good partner, and bringing lots of solutions to bear for people that need this technology, which I think is going to be most enterprises out there. So if you enjoyed this podcast, make sure to like us, rate us, and subscribe. You can also check out our past episodes, including those hosted by my good friend, Mike Cavus. Find out more at DeloitteCloudPodcast.com, all one word. If you'd like to contact me directly, you can email me at dlinthicum, LINTHICUM, at Deloitte.com. So until next time, best of luck on your cloud journey. You guys stay safe. Cheers.
Thank you for listening to On Cloud for Cloud Professionals with David Linthicum. Connect with David on Twitter and LinkedIn, and visit the Deloitte on Cloud blog at Deloitte.com/US/Deloitte-on-cloud-blog. Be sure to rate and review the show on your favorite podcast app. This podcast is produced by Deloitte. The views and opinions expressed by podcast speakers and guests are solely their own and do not reflect the opinions of Deloitte. This podcast provides general information only and is not intended to constitute advice or services of any kind. For additional information about Deloitte, go to Deloitte.com/about.